So now what we're gonna do is Matt Nolfo, he is licensed in New York and New Jersey, and he is going to discuss about the difference between New York and New Jersey Medicaid for nursing homes. That will help everyone decide whether we should all move to New Jersey or to New York, to that matter, when I retire. Right now, I was telling Matt, I think New York is much more friendly, but Matt tells me it's changing. New York is changing their Medicaid because they're short of money, like everybody else. So go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chen. Can everybody see me and hear me?
I can.
Yes.
So you might hear, I am in New York, so you'll hear sirens from time to time. So I'll try to mute when it gets too loud. But anyway, my name is Matt Nolfo. We have a firm here in New York. I practice also in New Jersey, and am lucky enough to gotten to know Don for many years and Chen as well. But we're going to give you the kind of the comparison between states. They are practicing in both states, so they are quite different in many issues. So let's start with something simple like the resource levels. How much in assets can somebody have and be on Medicaid? So you can see the New York numbers are much higher. A single person can have about 28,000, and a couple that's both applying can have about 37,000. In New Jersey, you could see it's simply 2,000 and 3,000. This also has an impact on planning, which we'll get to in a minute. Don talked about gifting and starting like an annuity and a penalty. In order to start that gift for the time to run so that the gift penalty will expire, the person has to have under the resource cap. It's very hard to be under the resource cap in New Jersey if it's only $2,000. And there's a lot of margin for error in New York if it's 28,000. So that does play into a significant difference. The look back periods in the state. So Don said there's a 5-year look back for all long-term care services in New Jersey. In New York, there is no look back for home-based community care, like home care or even in an assisted living facility. There's no look back. That's probably going to change in 2024, and there's going to be a 30-month look back. But right now it's up in the air. So that's an advantage that New York has over New Jersey. New York downstate also normally a client can get a decent number of hours. So we'll get into that. But for nursing home Medicaid, it's the same as New Jersey, a 5-year look back on all applications. Okay. So in New York, we have something called spousal refusal. That means that if there's 2 spouses and there's $400,000 in countable assets, the ill spouse can gift to the well spouse. The well spouse can keep that money intact, file a refusal saying I'm not paying for my ill spouse's care and support, and Medicaid will grant the ill spouse eligibility, will be granted. In New Jersey, Don just explained that that doesn't happen, or if it happens, it's very, very rare. New York recognizes spousal refusal for all levels of care under the Medicaid program. In New Jersey, sparingly, I guess you could say, recognizes it. So in New Jersey, you really have to figure out what the countable assets are, do a spend down, probably do a spousal annuity. A lot more planning is involved to make the ill spouse eligible for Medicaid. So that's important. So that's the advantage for New York. The flip side is that if you do a spousal refusal, the community spouse has all the money, but the community spouse then can get sued by the county for what they're paying for the ill spouse. So a lot of people say, well, you know, why would you do that? The reality is that the counties in New York often don't go after people. I can't think of the last case I've had when they did. And if they do, they're going after them at a Medicaid rate, which is far less than the private rate the family would pay if they couldn't qualify for Medicaid. So that's a pretty good deal in New York if you have a community spouse. On the flip side, having done some cases in New Jersey, I like the fact that once the community spouse gets SX assets, annuitizes them, and let's say lives through the annuity period, they can keep those assets and they never have a liability to pay for their spouse's care. So even though it sounds like a lot of work at first for a New Jersey couple under a bad Medicaid situation, it could work out better than New York in the long run. Okay, so I'm not sure which state wins on that one. That's a tough call. Home care. So home care in New York is traditionally been a good deal. Downstate, we get a lot of people on 24-hour care, live-in. I have some clients on split shift care. As you go further upstate, and it dwindles because the availability of aides is not as great. There is no look back still, so somebody could transfer $500,000 and then the next month be eligible for home care Medicaid. It's a good deal. And there's no income cap for that. You have to just put money in a pooled trust, which we'll talk about in a minute. And that's how you can shelter your excess income. So home care in New York still works pretty well. The hours are a little harder to get. The assessment criteria has changed to some extent, but it's still a pretty viable thing to do.
So basically, it sounds like if I want to get home care, I'm probably better off to move to New York.
Still, I would say yes.
24/7, right?
I would say yes.
So before, if I not going to nursing home, I just want to get someone to come in to take care of me. So all I have to do is make sure I move all my assets out, and then I can just move to New York. Is there a limit, like a time-wise? Like, do I have to be moving to New York within a certain time frame before I can get on Medicaid?
It's a good question. There's no durational requirement, but they will look and see what your contacts are with New York. They know that New Jersey is not as favorable, so sometimes they'll look and see whether you just came in to avail yourself for benefits or if you have some other reason to be here. And if you have some other reason to be here, it's usually not a problem.
Okay.
So, okay. Pool trust, right? So New York, in New Jersey, you need to have a Miller Trust QIT. If you're in a nursing home, assisted living, or home care, if your income's over 2,742. In New York, if you're in a nursing home, you don't need to do any kind of a pool trust. You just spend down your income and then Medicaid pays the balance at the Medicaid rate. But if you're in the community getting home care mostly, then there is, if your income is over about, now it's $1,563 a month, it's increased by quite a bit as well. You have to use a pool trust to shelter your income, but it can be used to pay for other expenses like your rent, your mortgage, your taxes. The idea is to try to keep you in the community. It doesn't have to be spent on your care, which is a big advantage, I think, over New Jersey, because in the QIT, you do have to use the money for care. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but so the pool trust model in New York, I would give New York the advantage. It works quite well. Now, the next category is a clear favorite for New Jersey. So New York's assisted living program for Medicaid is not expansive. It's limited to a certain number of facilities, not a lot of choices, and the care for community-based long-term care in assisted living is really limited to congregate care needs, meaning you can't have a lot of significant needs, or you just won't be able to be in the Medicaid ALP program in New York. Whereas New Jersey, and you guys can chime in, has a significant number more of assisted livings that have 10% of their beds allotted for Medicaid. Sure, there's still a 5-year look back and all that, but and there's usually some private period of payment that the facilities require, but these are nice facilities that have Medicaid beds, And this is a much better deal in New Jersey than in New York, hands down.
It's, as you know, it's more complicated to get on Medicaid in an assisted living facility, and most of the facilities have a 2-year requirement that you private pay. But, once you comply with those requirements, a lot of clients have gotten onto Medicaid and assisted living facilities.
Right. So I think it's clear advantage to New Jersey. New York is way behind.